In 1897, William McKinley was inaugurated as America's 25th president, and the first Boston Marathon was run. 1898 saw the sale of the first auto insurance policy in the U.S., and an automobile speed record of 39 miles per hour was set. Among the items patented in 1899 were the rubber heel, aspirin, and the lawnmower. But the DePauw-Wabash football rivalry sat dormant during those 3 years. As a new century dawned, this is a look at the First National Bank of Greencastle in 1900. The two schools made up for lost time by scheduling a pair of games, and the series' first prankster emerged. A week prior to the first Wabash-DePauw game, a man came to Greencastle claiming to be an Indianapolis newspaper reporter. He got permission to sit on the Tiger bench on game day to ensure his write-up would be comprehensive. Some journalist this guy turned out to be. He was Wabash head coach Anthony Shez. The very next week, in a game played not far from this Wabash classroom, the home team's scouting paid off with a 6-0 victory. Wabash scored its touchdown 3 minutes before the game was over. 5 weeks later at DePauw, a different outcome. The Tigers prevailed 26-11 in a game that was called on account of darkness 12 minutes into the second half. Shez would sit on the DePauw bench the entire next season. He left Wabash to coach their rivals before the 1901 campaign began. On October 12, 1901, what had been known as the Executive Mansion got a new moniker, as President Theodore Roosevelt renamed this place the White House. As the weather turned chillier in Greencastle, a local merchant launched a $7 overcoat sale. Like the season before, the two teams played 2 games in 1901. This is the Wabash team photo. They took place on consecutive Mondays, with the first at DePauw's McKean Field. The Greencastle banner wrote a song to get DePauw fans worked up. Sung to the tune of Marching Through Georgia, it began, "Come ye men of DPU, assemble on McKean. 'Twill be the very toughest game Wabash has ever seen." They were seemingly prophetic words, as a strong running game gave the Tigers 2 victories. And Greencastle had a third reason to celebrate that fall, as word arrived that free mail delivery would soon begin in the city. DePauw fans had bragging rights headed into the 1902 game and were begging for more, but there would be no contest with Wabash that fall. A year later, when the two teams renewed their growing rivalry in Crawfordsville, classrooms emptied and the library had plenty of free seats. Tiger coach Chauncey Berrien and his team were 2-5-1 entering the final game, having been drubbed by Indiana 70-0 the week before. Coach Tug Wilson and his Wabash squad were 8-2 against opponents, which included 2 high school teams. And the men in scarlet schooled their rivals from DePauw in the 1903 clash 10-0. Wabash ended its season the following weekend with a 34-0 loss to Notre Dame. On November 4, 1904, Harvard Stadium, the first facility built specifically for football, opened. 5 days later, courtesy of the Wright brothers, came the first airplane flight to last more than 5 minutes. The 04 Wabash football team was the first to be known as Little Giants. Coach Francis Caillou commented that his scrappy team was made up of good little men. That became Little Giants in newspaper reports. Here's a look at the DePauw team in a year in which there would be no rivalry game. After much back and forth, the two teams could not agree on a date for a contest and finally gave up the talks just before Thanksgiving weekend. The 1905 DePauw team was led by Fred Tucker, the subject of this flattering yearbook cartoon, and the Tigers had a new coach, O.H. Luck. But the team's luck wasn't very good when they faced off against Wabash in late November. The Giants were huge, racking up 577 yards of offense to their opponent's 198, winning in a romp. Symbols of Greencastle, the town square, and East College are familiar sights as we look back upon 1906. Although classrooms had a different look then, vintage photos also show the university's physics club, fencing society, oratorical association, and preachers club. Prayers couldn't hurt the football team. DePauw opened its 1906 season by thumping Franklin, this is a shot from that game, 81-6, but went on to lose by a combined 88-0 to Michigan State and Indiana. Wabash sold a big bunch of tickets to the rivalry game at its chapel before that Saturday, and at least 75 rooters paid $1 apiece to ride the Monon to Greencastle. The Little Giants had beaten Purdue, and pundits were prognosticating that the Wabash offense would rack up as many as 50 points against DePauw. But wet, miserable conditions made this a defensive struggle. We're looking at a photo from the 1906 game. Charles Jewett, who would later become mayor of Indianapolis, was disqualified for unnecessary roughness, and even All-American honorable mention Fred Tucker couldn't save the day as the Tigers walked off McKean Field with another loss.
Happy New Year!
1907 began with a new world record. On January 1st, President Theodore Roosevelt shook 8,513 hands in one day. On October 22nd of that year, Ringling Brothers, boasting the greatest show on earth, bought the Barnum and Bailey Circus. About 2.5 weeks later, another edition of small college football's big show came to Crawfordsville. The 225 DePauw fans who made the trip arrived chanting "Wahoo, Wahoo, Rip, Zip, Bazoo" as they marched 4 abreast to Ingalls Field. Wabash scored a touchdown, 2 drop kicks, and a safety to claim an 11-4 victory. The Tigers may have surprised the favored Little Giants with a close game, but they still went home with a loss. As the fall of 1908 arrived, West College and the other buildings on the DePauw campus welcomed a new addition. Greencastle's Andrew Carnegie Library was dedicated in October, something students likely wrote home about on this vintage postcard. The Tigers were 4-2 heading into their last game of the season with Wabash. The Little Giants, with new head coach Ralph Jones, who had been successfully leading the basketball program, were 1-5, coming off an 8-4 loss to Notre Dame. On a Friday in November, 350 DePauw students made the train trip to Crawfordsville, where the total crowd was estimated at 1,000. This is a photo from the 1908 game. It was scoreless until the second half, when a pair of touchdowns by Wabash's James Herc, short for Hercules, Steers, determined the outcome. A 12-0 victory for the home team. This panoramic photo from 1909 gives us a glimpse of the Wabash College campus in another era. It was a year when the football team got off to a 2-3 start before the game with its rivals to the south. A Wabash graduate became the new grid coach and helped reshape the game. Jesse Harper was an early proponent of the forward pass. A DePauw team boasting names such as Hop Overman, Kinks Hawthorne, and Warhorse Sellers had only played one game, a 28-5 loss to Indiana before the rivalry contest. 3 days before kickoff, the DePauw student newspaper chastised a Crawfordsville columnist for his pipe dream after predicting a 60-0 Little Giants win. In a battle waged just a few blocks from bustling Washington Street, this DePauw team held tough and proved the columnist's optimism wrong. When it was over, the DePauw paper went so far as to characterize the scoreless outcome as a Tiger victory.